And call before we get to another week of F1 and NASCAR and Indy. 2 weeks away from the start of the kart season again with EDKRA, and you guys have a program, the Try-A-Kart program, for people who have thought about it and maybe we'll get into it. So how can people get involved? We've had a few texts over the last few weeks. People have said, hey, how do I get involved? So how can you do it?
Really simply, go to edkra.ca. It's what's called Try-A-Kart. And yeah, I mean, it's just an awesome program where with very little expense. I mean, I think it costs about $150. You get to get out to the track. There's a classroom session where you learn some of the mechanics of the kart, kind of what to expect on track, some of the driving techniques that a person needs to do, and then the day is finalized where you do two follow the leader sessions on track. So you kind of learn the driving line, get an idea for how fast the karts are going to go, and then your last session is just you on the track where you get to push as hard as you want, and then really start to get the feel for what these karts are capable of.
All right, well, that'll be exciting. And so you want to do it now. I know you guys have got the karting classes have grown, so that's good news. More people locally are getting involved, which should be fun. This weekend, F1 returns, and they're in Italy. There was some crazy incidents last year on this one. I guess the main question is, and I think you saw it online. Nick was asking about the heating of tires in F1. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, this year they've greatly reduced it. I mean, I can't put a function or a percentage on it, but just for argument's sake, the tire blankets this year are about half as effective as they were last year. So what the tire blankets do, and it's kind of unique to F1, is they'll pre-warm the tires to basically get them to race temperatures. So when they strap those things on during a pit stop, they get out onto the track and they're ready to rip. There's no prep, there's no cycling time. And in the first race this year in Bahrain, Lewis Hamilton was really caught out because I don't think they had really practiced it. When they do, when they were doing their test sessions, there's not really a sense of urgency to get up to speed. But in the race, he got out on the track and it was like he was driving on ice. As Nick asked, what would the reason be for that? And I think the idea is, first of all, tire blankets are an expense. And right now, every penny, every dollar, everything that these teams spend money on is being scrutinized because the budgets are so tight. And, although the budgets are still $140 million in F1 terms, that's such a drastic reduction. So there's a cost saving to be had there. But at the same time, it also makes things more interesting. I mean, most racing series don't have, the warmers, the blankets. IndyCar is a great example, of a similar looking car to what an F1 is. When they throw their tires on, their ambient temperatures, the wheels are cold, the tires are cold. And it takes, it really takes an IndyCar, about a lap and a half to get up to full race speed. It really takes about 4 or 5 corners on a road course before the tires are even really, starting to get switched on. So, I think it'd be really interesting. It throws another wrench into the equation for how to handle pit stops and, then the undercut becomes super, super important, meaning being the first one to pit, you get your tires on, you lose a little bit of time coming up to speed, but when everyone else is coming in, you're already up to speed and you can, likely do more overtaking.
There's some complaining from some groups that, teams shouldn't maybe be sharing information. First off, is this a real problem? People do share each other. And if they are, do you think it needs to be restricted so that teams can have kind of quantum leaps up the standing?
Well, 2 years ago, there was a big row with what was then Racing Point, who was implementing a lot of Mercedes' old technology, which the FIA had approved in the off season. They had passed a few tests, and all of a sudden, Racing Point was up front, challenging, Ferrari for positions. Lance Stroll was actually, fighting for podiums, and it was pretty interesting. This year, Haas, who went from, they were practically parking lot attendants. They were so slow. Now they're at the head of the mid pack, back of the front pack kind of thing, because of their affiliation with Ferrari and being able to implement a lot of their stuff. So I think there's a legitimate beef that a lot of teams have, because they're not doing it on merit. They're just doing it on purchased, technology or purchased IP. It again, like everything else, it's going to be really interesting to see how the FIA responds to this stuff.
Colin Livingston joins us. Also, the return to sprint qualifying. I think they do that 3 times this year. We saw it last year. After you saw it a few times, do you like it? What's your thoughts? Do you think teams or racers have learned anything from it? Can they be better at it this year?
I think they're learning from it, and now there's more incentive, because there's actual points being paid for for the sprint finishes up to, I think, 8th place. That there's a little bit more incentive for these guys to race a little bit harder. I'm honestly not a fan of it. I mean, I get to say that an awful lot. I don't like, NASCAR on dirt. I don't like, the restrictor plate races. I don't like a lot of things that are in racing, but I think, qualifying itself is such an exciting thing. I mean, it's 3 rounds. It's lots of back and forth. It's a bit of strategy. This just seems like a way that to protect the front runners, because they're going to be able to add points on Saturday to what they're going to get on Sunday. So Sunday's points are still the same. Now there's more points on Saturday. So if Ferrari, as an example, keeps on the roll that they're on, they're going to be able to, potentially walk away with 28 points out of a weekend instead of 20. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, why not just do 2 races? Like, instead of calling it a sprint race, take the, just double up the races and have double points on the weekend. I really, I don't really see what the point is. And to that end, with these sprint qualifying weekends, the FIA has approved additional funds of between $100,000 to $150,000 per team to cover the extra expenses of running all this extra stuff, because the teams can't do it. They really can't do it with their existing budget. So it's, I don't know. It's just, I don't think it makes anything more exciting. It's a little bit more racing. So, maybe it's not so bad.
Colin Livingston, joining us here on the Gregor Show for the CanTorque Race Report. I am Jason Strudwick. Sticking with F1, F1's going back to Italy this weekend. And last year it was some pretty interesting, wild race. Should we expect the same because it happened the previous year?
No, I don't think so. I mean, last year was where Verstappen really started to flex his muscle and get really, really elbows out, super aggressive with Hamilton. He's really shown a lot more patience and a little bit more courtesy around Charles Leclerc, which is kind of the 2 front runners. And right now, Max is in such a hole, having DNF'd in 2 races already this year, that he can't take a chance with contact. He can't, he can't throw it in the way he did last year, because if, the other drivers already know, if it becomes him and them, and Max is out, that's going to be another race where he doesn't score points. So he's got to drive, uncharacteristically for Max, which is smart instead of aggressive. But yeah, I mean, it was also where Bottas and George Russell came together, who ended up sort of, Russell took over Valtteri's seat, and that And now, unfortunately or fortunately, Bottas has actually had some better qualifyings and a few higher finishes than Russell in his new car. So it'll be interesting. I mean, Imola is a really really great great racetrack. It has a little bit of everything: tight corners, fast corners, long straightaways, a few passing zones. So F1 cars in Italy is about as good as it gets.
Colin, one last one for you. For our racing fans here who maybe are football fans, who might be racing fans, of course, Jordan Reeves, who was signed as defensive end with the Elks, is it his girlfriend or wife, Amber, who's just working her way up? She signed with Kyle Busch Motorsports. She jumped over to ARCA. She's back in action this weekend. How good is she?
Really good. I mean, everything comes down to all these drivers that get into ARCA as full-time drivers. I mean, they're great drivers, just like the Truck Series, Xfinity Series. Amber, want to call a little attention to her because, she's Canadian. So originally from Winnipeg, now making her home down in Charlotte. But yeah, with a great Edmonton connection, her husband again is going to be playing for the football team here. And we're pumping her tires up a little bit here because while IndyCar has a few 3-week breaks in the start of their schedule, ARCA's been off for like 6 weeks. So they've had a really long break. Yeah, Amber will be in action this weekend at Talladega. Obviously Talladega, as I was previously alluding to, is kind of a crapshoot. It's not really so much about racing, but just kind of staying lucky and not getting into a wreck by the end of the race. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't be too surprised if we see Amber in Edmonton a few times this year in off weekends to watch hubby play football. And I'll start twisting her arm a little bit. We'll see if we can get her into a Pinty's race by the end of the year, or maybe get her into a go-kart and have some fun with the off-camber karter bozos.
It's interesting. You talk about that different things that racers can do. Well, is there an advantage to racing different cars in different series to just kind of add to your, I don't know, just racing IQ, I guess?
Without question. I mean, at the professional level, especially, I'll use NASCAR as an example. They used to restrict their drivers from doing anything out like in another race car of any kind outside of their professional duties with NASCAR. And the thought was, if you're doing something, midday that results in an accident that gets you injured, it's going to affect the professional program. And, largely because of a guy like Kyle Larson, who, he made his deal with Hendrick. He, obviously sat on the sidelines for a long time. Came back in, and he was racing, like 6-7 days a week. When he wasn't in a cup car, he was getting in a sprint car and he was winning, and it led to a championship. So then Hendrick started to see that, the more varied racing that we put our drivers through, the better skill set that they're going to have. I mean, Kyle Busch has started racing on dirt during midweek. Chase Elliott's doing it. These are non-traditional dirt racers that, being on dirt, again, I'm very critical of NASCAR on dirt, but dirt racing itself is fantastic when you use, a dirt car to get around. The skill set that these guys have to have to control the car, to feel the changing track conditions, definitely translates back to the cup side of things. So no, I mean, the more you do, the better you're going to be. I mean, there's a reason why F1 guys are jumping back into go-karts when they're out of the big car for a long time, and it's because it really keeps your skills sharp, and it really keeps you physically fit.
Colin, always good to catch up with you, man. I appreciate it. We will chat with you next weekend. Another busy weekend of racing coming up. Thanks for it.